Welcome back, and it's time for the State of the Nation, and I'll start first of all by introducing the guests that we have in studio, and it's a continuation of the guests that we had for newspaper review. We do have Harriet Chigai, who's the LSK VP. Thank you for joining us. We're also joined by Lempa Suyinka. Thank you for joining us, who's a lawyer, and Muthiomi Thiankolu. Thank you for joining us. Well, today is the election that is expected. It is high stake. It is for the male representative, for LSK representative for the Judicial Service Commission. And that's what we'd like to talk about. Of course, this is a very sensitive and critical role, given the role that the Judicial Service Commission plays in ensuring that we have a functioning judiciary in Kenya. And let's set the pace with a story that was done by Maringa earlier on, just to set the pace for the conversation.
The 27th of August 2010, Kenya ushered in a new constitution.
And it is presented to His Excellency.
As Kenya's third president, Mwai Kibaki, displayed the new document after appending his signature, it marked a new dawn for Kenya, which had been preceded by a successful referendum in the same year. The new constitution came along with new tenets, which include Article 171, Section 1, which established the Judicial Service Commission. The commission shall consist of 11 members, who include the Chief Justice, who shall be the chairperson of the commission, one Supreme Court judge elected by the judges of the Supreme Court, one Court of Appeal judge elected by the judges of the Court of Appeal, one High Court judge and one magistrate, one a woman and one a man, elected by the members of the Association of Judges and Magistrates, the Attorney General, 2 advocates, 1 a woman and 1 a man, each of whom has at least 15 years experience, elected by the members of the statutory body responsible for the professional regulation of advocates, 1 person nominated by the Public Service Commission, and 1 woman and 1 man to represent the public, not being lawyers appointed by the President with the approval of the National Assembly. Article 172 states the role of the Judicial Service Commission, which include recommend to the President persons for appointment as judges, review and make recommendations on the conditions of service of judges and judicial officers other than their remuneration and the staff of the judiciary, appoint, receive complaints against, investigate and remove from office or otherwise discipline registrars, magistrates, other judicial officers and other staff of the judiciary in the manner prescribed by an Act of Parliament, prepare and implement programs for the continuing education and training of judges and judicial officers, and advise the national government on improving the efficiency of the administration of justice. The initial team of the Judicial Service Commission was appointed in December 2010, and since then, the Law Society of Kenya has continued to elect members to the commission. And on Thursday this week, advocates will go to the ballot to pick their male representative to the Judicial Service Commission. The 4 candidates in the race are Professor Tom Ojienda, Gathi Irungu, Macharia Njeru, and Charles Ongoto. The winner will join his colleague Mercy Mwarandeche, the Law Society of Kenya female representative to the Judicial Service Commission. Law Society of Kenya representatives to the JSC serve for a term of 5 years and are eligible for another 1 term if Law Society of Kenya members vote them back. The terms of both LSK male and female representatives do not end at the same time. George Maringa, KTN News.
Right, and Gathi Irungu has so far pulled out, and his reason was stating regional balance. But Sophia Wanuna, my colleague, did host a debate with the 4 of them. But just to get the introductory remarks and what they had to say as they were on that debate, let's listen into some of the sound bites that we have.
Thank you, Sophie. My name is Macharia Njeru, as has been indicated. I've practiced for 28 years now. I've also served in both public and private corporate institutions. I served as chair of a bank in Rwanda. I served in a board of a bank in Uganda and also in Kenya. Served as the inaugural chair of the Independent Policing Oversight Authority. Has served as the chair of the board finance committee of Anglican Church of Kenya, Nairobi Diocese. I've served as chair of many private charitable institutions. I have a lot of experience both in private practice and these institutions in setting up corporate governance structures. And what we need in these critical institutions, being JSC and judiciary, right now, is somebody who has that experience so that we can ensure that systems and processes are put in place. We institutionalize them so that we can have efficiency, we can have accountability, we can have ethical practices, and the country would benefit out of that. That's what I'm able to bring on board. And I believe that's the reason why I've offered my candidature, so that we can take these institutions.
My name is Professor Tom Ojenda, Senior Counsel. I am running for a second term as a Commissioner of the Judicial Service Commission. I have previously served as President or Chairman of the Law Society of Kenya, President East Africa Law Society, Vice President Pan-African Lawyers Union, Council Member International Bar Association. I have published over 10 books, written over 25 articles in refereed journals, Professor Moi University School of Law. But let me say this, that professionally, I have been within the Law Society leadership for many years. During this time, I have mentored young advocates. I appreciate the role of a commissioner at the JSC. These are commission of 11 commissioners, and the main role of the commission under Article 172 is oversight and fostering accountability, hiring judges, judicial officers, and setting pace for discipline.
My name is Charles Mungaro Ngoto. I've been in active practice for the last 19 years. When I say active practice, meaning practicing on a daily basis in these courts. Why I decided to contest for this position is because I do understand the problems that we face in these courts. Lawyers and the public face a lot of problems while litigating in their matters. And I decided that instead of sitting back and waiting for somebody to come and fix those problems, I realized I have the ability, the capability of doing those, fixing those problems. You've heard, I've not served in any commission, but I have the experience of 19 years in court. And what you lawyers and the public need is somebody who has an experience in court, a very clean record. And I've never had an issue in court. And that's why I said, I'm the best person. And in fact, all of you could see, even as we are here, you will see I'm different, dressed differently, indicating the seriousness on which I take this position. And that's why all of them came casually, knowing that Ngoto is there. He will take charge, he will serve the judiciary. And in fact, the matters, the problems you face in litigating.
All right, and those are the three candidates who are going to be vying for the seat later today. And let me come now to the panel, and I'll start with you, Harriet, on first of all underscoring the importance of this particular seat and the role that is expected to be played by whoever is going to take it today.
Thank you very much. One, you must realize that the role of JSC in this country is weighty. Just as it has been spelled out in the Constitution, this is the team that disciplines judges in this country. This is the team that puts in place training mechanism for all judges and magistrates. It's the same team that advises the president on who is to be appointed as a judge. Right. You know, so JSC as a commission is a very, very important commission in this country, and it's one commission that I must say must be very, very independent because of the tasks given to it by the Constitution.
And your submission so far on how they have performed so far since 2010.
Let me start by saying this is a commission that was put in place in 2010. We are now in 2019. When we look at the problems where we were, or the issues that we had in 2010, or the situation where we were in 2010, culminatively to date, what are their achievements? We cannot look back and say they have achieved nothing. They have achieved something, but there's still a lot that needs to be done. Okay. And it's it's something that has to be done by the commission as the commission. It's a board, it's not individualistic. So the successes of this commission is either the institution itself has performed or it has not performed. And there's a lot that still needs to be done, and that also needs to be systematic. We need to be able to measure their performance. And how do we do that? It's high time we get to know where they were in 2010, what is their strategic plan, what were the indicators in terms of performance, and where are we currently as we speak.
All right, and I'll come to you, Mudhomi, now on the question of the LSK had even disagreements on things, even as qualifications, as qualifications to date. That is something that many would expect to already have been thrashed out. Your thoughts and your comments on where we are now, given that even qualifications are still not agreed upon on who should qualify to be a member of the JSC?
For me, the issue of qualification was just a hidden hand of deep state trying to influence this election. And that would not surprise me, because we live in a time where the judiciary, number one, has been significantly empowered by the 2010 Constitution compared with the type of judiciary we had prior to 2010. So the political stakes for the key stakeholders in the state are very high in this election. And you see it not just in this election, even the LSK council elections in which Harriet serves as a council member, we have seen a very strong hidden hand of political operators.
The political angle of it.
And the reason that is the case is that unlike the pre-2010 years, we now live in an era where actually the institution that rules is the judiciary. The judiciary decides things like allocation of revenues. The judiciary decides political disputes like presidential election petitions. The Constitution has expanded the Bill of Rights, which has limited the huge, powerful executive we had before. So if you're a significant political player in Kenya, whether in government or in the opposition, it is in your absolute interest, and that's what I would expect any rational person to do, to want to influence the direction that such elections take. So for me, when I saw the disagreements and the harassment of some of the candidates and even some of the propaganda they have adopted, if you go to this election, one of the candidates is labeled a cartel, the other one is labeled a government project and whatnot. And I think it's just a reflection of the underlying political forces that influence this election. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I do not know. All I know is that it is a natural consequence
that comes about
the type of the constitution we adopted.
Okay, Lempa, there's no, of course, underplaying the power and the role that the Judicial Service Commission plays, especially in selecting of judges, to appoint even the Chief Justice himself, and given even, like the political angle to it in terms of having the elections nullified at one point, it really is a very critical role. Are you satisfied with the qualifications so far that have been put, the threshold of the lawyers that sit in the JSC?
Yes, looking at the CVs that have been put across by the three candidates, Ongoto, Ojienda and Macharia Njeru, these are eminently qualified advocates, but I have a problem with the way the Constitution is worded. That is Article 171(2)(f) or G, that limits or tries to control how advocates are supposed to vote, because you realize that you have to be 15 years of practice, to have 15 years of practice, which is in an election. My feeling, and this was agreed by the LSK annual general meeting last year, not this year, that particular article of the Constitution needs to be relooked. Actually, they passed a motion that particular section is discriminative, in that it is for Lempa to discriminate, not the law. Because what we are going today to vote is a guided democracy, whereby almost 60-70% of all advocates who are between 1 and 14 years are disenfranchised. So therefore,
But don't you feel that experience is necessary, especially given the critical role that the JSC plays?
Yeah, experience is very critical. But you find nowadays, with due respect, there are people who have studied law, medicine, they have studied engineering, and when they are almost 40 years, they change career and they become advocates. So that you find someone has been the chairman of maybe the medical practitioners of Kenya for 10 years and is 10-year-old in the legal fraternity. Therefore, he has about 20 years of relevant experience. And if you look at the magistrates who are supposed to sit in the JSC, such a requirement is not there.
It's not there.
Such that it's only in advocates that the position of the chair of LSK and the position of the representative of JSC is a preserve of the elite advocates, so that you disenfranchise almost 60-70% of all advocates.
Harriet, do you agree that the 15-year limit is discriminatory and leaves out a very huge number of lawyers who potentially could, take those positions?
Yeah. Allow me to weigh in on that, and I agree. And it's because it's very simple. Any board must have a mix in terms of age, gender, ethnic balance, and you'll also realize the young people come with a lot of new ideas and the vibrancy. So in as much as we want to limit, and when you look at that particular commission, you'll realize the other members, it's already predetermined. So their age has already been predetermined, because for you to be a judge in the High Court, you have to be 10 years and above. How about sitting in the commission? So experience is key, but it's also important we don't limit. We don't lock out a group of members intentionally. And you'll realize previously, and I want to give live examples, Firoz Noroji was actually 1 year in practice when he took over LSK as the chair. He's one of the most respected lawyers in this country.
And he did a good job.
Senior counsel Ahmed Nasir was only 7 years in practice. And we have the others, and they did a tremendous job. So age for me is not a factor in terms of leadership. It's not, because if you have a system where you mentor, you have a system where you leave office and allow those who you have mentored to take those offices, will not be having this problem of age. It's a Kenyan thing to hold on to offices
simply
and guard
because
them.
Of age. Mudhomi, are you in
and you don't let
agreement
go.
with that? I don't know whether it's unfortunate. Maybe we did not have somebody who's much older here. We may be viewed to be discriminating the older.
Maybe this is how to think of it, that you can be the president of the Republic of Kenya in charge of the whole country without that requirement, but you need the 15 years to sit in a smaller body. You can be a governor in the Republic of Kenya without 15 years experience in charge of an entire county. You can be a cabinet secretary without this requirement. Then number two, my own personal experience. When I became an advocate, in my very first weeks of practice, by good or bad luck, all the cases I did in my early career were against the senior counsel, and I won all those cases. And yet I was not even a month or even 2 months. So I think there is merit in the complaint that this election is not fair to the extent that it locks out people who don't meet this age requirement. Then of course the other issue is outcome of the various members, say for the Supreme Court justice who have only one, then the others need not have that requirement. So in my view, it should be reviewed. Of course, there is no gainsaying that there is value experience adds, but it may also be a reflection of the traditions of this profession. The legal profession is generally hierarchical, and this hierarchy is pegged on seniority and age and whatnot. But that also has its bad side. Perhaps the reason our courts still are so behind in terms of technology, behind in terms of new ideas and whatnot, the reason everyone feels that the court and the judiciary is the institution most deeply stuck in
the
obsolete
past.
methods of operation, in obsolete ideas, is because of this culture of seniority. Because if predominantly it's only people who are old that take the key positions, then you don't expect much dynamism in such a profession and in such an institution.
All right. And maybe looking at also the independence of the JSC, because that's one of the other things that has come out. And I'll come to you, Lempa, on do you feel the JSC is fully independent, especially looking at now what we started off by saying there's a huge political hand that could be seen even in ensuring that people who are friendly to, you know, a certain political inclination are the ones who are there by virtue of the fact of the role the JSC plays.
I believe independence of the judiciary in this country is a mirage, by and large, in that much as the Constitution speaks volume about the independence of these institutions, more so Chapter 15 commissions, of which JSC is part of, you find a lot of vested interest in them. As my colleague said, political, whether it's good that the political hand in it. If you look at Article 172 on the values of the JSC, it talks about both independence and accountability. But oftentimes you hear people talking about independence. We do not hear the judiciary itself talking about accountability. You write some correspondence to JSC, they don't even respond, so that they are not accountable at all. And these are people benefiting directly from the taxpayers, from the taxes that Kenyans pay. And I'm very passionate talking about taxes because I believe that Kenyans start paying taxes from the tomb, from the womb to the tomb. Because immediately you are conceived, your mother starts going for prenatal. When you die, you stop paying taxes when we lay the rape on your, because people coming there will spend money on fuel, which is tax.
Don't stop, there is a nested tax.
Yes, my senior year actually has. It is not from womb to tomb, it exceeds the tomb actually. So that JSC is supposed not only to pursue its independence, but also its accountability to the Kenyan people.
And Harriet, what is the reason that JSC is not accountable? And why can't they be accountable? After all, they are on taxpayers' money.
I must say accountability is an issue that all institutions must have. It could be an issue of laxity. It could be an issue of, that's one thing that most institutions lack. And if I go by what he has said, where you have state taking into or haggling into the issues of institutions, you then find it's very difficult for these institutions to report back. And we are not even talking about JSC alone. Look at ESCC, a very important institutions that we have, the DPP, you know, even the agents
Can't
office.
then, especially in regards to JSC, can't LSK then do something about that? You are the VP, what is it that LSK can do in terms of making sure that the JSC is accountable? After all, they are from the LSK.
One thing I must say that LSK has 2 seats. And of course, the others should be our members by virtue of the offices they hold. So they were members first before. And that is one area that, as an institution, we need to work very closely with these institutions as well. And we are. We've been in communication with the Office of the CJ in terms of even what we expect out of these offices. We have quite a number of activities that we are working with them. And we are hoping by end of this year, we'll have gone back to check whether the issues that were raised, even by members, where are we in terms of implementation? Have we made any improvement? And these 2 institutions must work closely together. And accountability is key.
It's key.
In fact, it should be number 1 before integrity.
Do you see any solutions, or what are the solutions for ensuring that accountability is there? Because then, if we're saying they're not accountable, what are we doing about it?
Yes, through our representation. And that is why, as members go out there to vote, they should actually vote for that candidate who they think is going to carry the mantle. It's important. It's important because the society has to channel even its ideas through our members, and we have. And a lot of issues have been resolved through that channel, through our representation. And there's still a lot, just like I said, there's still a lot that needs to be done.
Okay.
We cannot say they have done They have done whatever it is we have recommended to conclusion, but a lot of things is still work in progress, and we are hoping whoever will get that position by the end of today, we are hoping that they are going to carry the mantle. They are going to carry the common mwananchi. You know, we say Wanjiko, but nowadays I say everyone, Ochieng, Onyango, Kibet. We are going to carry all these people into heart and ensure that whatever it is we are doing in that office is towards the benefit of the people.
We're out of time, and I'll need your closing comments. I'll start with you, Mudhomi. And what's that one thing that you'd want the JSC to achieve once they have, we have now the male representative elected?
The question of accountability is a big problem, not just for JSC, but also for their servants who are the magistrates and judges. Is a serious problem that needs to be addressed. There is the whole question of efficiency, and I mean administrative efficiency, the question of case backlog, whatnot, problems of financial independence. I don't believe the judiciary as an institution has been getting anything close to a reasonable budgetary allocation, and that has a knock-on effect on the achievement of all its constitutional functions. The whole question of technology, we're still operating like we were in the 18th and 19th century, yet the rest of the world has moved so much in terms of technology. I think we've made a lot of strides in terms of the quality of the judgments that come from our courts, and that momentum needs to be kept.
All right, and coming to you, Lempa, your closing comments, and that one thing that you'd want the JSC to achieve.
Actually, my closing remarks are that today's election is a very sad issue because of the amount of money that candidates have spent. Electorates or advocates have been invited to five-star hotels and public clubs or private clubs where they are fed with alcohol, intoxicating liquor, so that a lot of money has gone into this election. And you ask yourself, what are the stakes? I proposed one time that at least we required a limit of the amount of money that a candidate is supposed to spend in either the presidency of LSK or the position of the LSK at Judicial Service Commission. By the fact that I do not qualify to vie for that position, definitely I'll not be voting. It's very simple, can't vie, can't vote, because we moved that particular motion. It was accepted by the supreme organ of the LSK itself and said that we are not satisfied. Unfortunately, Parliament did not necessitate the requisite amendments. Funny enough, the motion that failed, that I moved on 30th of March to bar LSK representatives at the JSC to appear, not to practice, but to appear before magistrates, courts and judges, failed. I lost graciously before the AGM. That is the motion that Parliament is taking. It has been taken by Kanini Kega, and they want to make it a law.
Okay, so for
so
you,
that the one that passed has not been considered. The one that failed is the one that is being considered.
It's being considered. So for you, can't vie, can't vote, but it's still going to happen. But what message would you have to the candidate, whoever is going to take the mantle?
The candidate who is going to take the mantle to make sure that come 5 years that all advocates are able to vie, because I can promise you that even when I attain the age of 15, I'll not participate in an election whereby I disenfranchise others. It is for advocates to decide who is their representative, not the law.
All right, thank you very much. Harriet, you get the last word.
Mine actually is to the executive. It's important that the presidency of this country and those who are charged with institutional development to allow these institutions to be independent. It is for them, if they want to have performance metrics and positive SWOT analysis after their tenure. The war against corruption, we cannot achieve much if all these institutions have those who believe they own them. you know. And if we have institutions which are independent, if you have institutions which have personnel with the mantle to drive their role and activities with a very, very independent mind, then we will have this country to take far. And that is my parting shot. Allow these independent institutions to do their job.
And do it
allow this and do it independently. Allow these institutions to be able to advise in a very independent way. It's you to take the advice or not. But only then can we have a country that we are all taking pride on.
Thank you very much. Yes. We'll have to wind it up right there. Harriet Chigai, LSK VP, Lempa Soyinka, who's a lawyer, and also Muthomi Thiankolu, who is a lawyer as well. Thank you very much for joining us this morning on State of the Nation. And the elections are going to be taking place, and we wish the best candidate all the best. And well, we do take a break right here, but do stay with us. On Morning Express continues after the break.